Yesterday, Pam Bondi put on a performance so humiliating and poor that even Mike Johnson is attacking her. Now, this is notable for two main reasons to me. The first being that Mike Johnson usually doesn't see when something bad happens with a Republican, so the fact that this even came to his attention shows how monumental the screw-up was from Bondi. Now, the second reason why I think this is important, maybe the more important reason, is that Mike Johnson never says anything for himself. If he is calling out Pam Bondi, it is because Donald Trump wants him to. Now, of course, Trump's public position in a post that we went over today was that Thomas Massie was a real jerk to Pam Bondi and she's a patriot. But behind the scenes, we know Donald Trump is pissed. And it is privately that he is pissed in the same way that it was the private information that Pam Bondi got caught with that has Johnson calling her out, attacking her, and setting up a real fight within MAGA. And it all begins with what Pramila Jayapal said in this interview last night.
Can we put back on the screen what the Attorney General of the United States brought to the hearing today, specifically about the Congresswoman, because I think it's important. Congresswoman, were you aware that you were being, and not just you, it seems, but if they've tracked you, I would believe they tracked other people. So were you aware of this, one? And two, have you reached out to the Department of Justice, specifically the Attorney General's office, to follow up and ask, what the hell was that?
Well, I absolutely will be doing that. We're in the process of working on a letter right now. All of us.
Can I just say, because there are people watching, they're going to say, they're always sending a letter. A letter is how you register.
That's how we register our dissent. But also, you might have seen that Mike Johnson even said he thought it would be completely inappropriate if it was true that the Department of Justice, I don't know what words he used, I'm going to use my words, was spying on us, because that's what this was. I mean, we have a separation of powers, which means that we need to be able to do our legislative duty, and for us to go in to review the Epstein documents and then to know that they have kept the search history of exactly what we searched for. And why was it that she brought that in her binder, which we call her burn book, right? Was she going to use that against me? Did they get that document for every single person? And what were they going to do with it? We need a new process. That's what we're going to demand from the Department of Justice. That's what I'm going to tell Mike Johnson as well when I get to speak to him. I left him a message on the way here, because we need a process where we know that the Department of Justice is not spying on us as members of Congress.
There is no reason that Pam Bondi, one, should be looking at what members of Congress are searching when they are looking through the Epstein files. That's one. But two, why would she have that info ready to go? Was she going to clap back? I understand that she would not want to be caught off guard with what they would bring up, because Pam Bondi has no interest in protecting survivors or prosecuting criminals. She just wants to protect herself from having a bad moment. Hey, Pam, that didn't work. But it doesn't make sense to bring the binder. What it does make sense to bring, though, is accountability. And it's what Jamie Raskin said right here before we get to Johnson.
DOJ monitoring the...
Wait, what do you make of this? DOJ's monitoring files?
It is a violation of the separation of powers for them to essentially be monitoring our computer searches on the Epstein file. So I think it's outrageous that they would do that, and it's Orwellian, and we're going to have some more to say about it soon.
Do you know if Congresswoman Jayapal was the only person?
We have reason to believe that it was happening to everybody who went over there, that they were monitoring everybody's computer searches.
What gives you reason to believe that?
We'll be having more to say about this later.
Is this something you guys learned from DOJ directly, or from?
We'll be having something.
Pam Bondi, once again, is breaking the law. And that is the way that we should always be speaking about this cover-up. Not that the law was broken, and now Pam Bondi has decided that we're moving on, that Carolyn Levitt said, we're finished with this. I can tell you we're not. They are breaking the law actively, and they need to be held accountable. And if you want Pam Bondi to lose her job, which I think we all do, what Mike Johnson just said shines a pretty nice light into where Donald Trump's head is likely at. Johnson finally rebukes Trump over Bondi's snooping scandal. House Speaker Mike Johnson offered up an extremely rare rebuke of the Trump administration over its tracking of lawmakers' searches of the Jeffrey Epstein files. The revelation that the Justice Department was monitoring which unredacted files lawmakers were looking up was inadvertently made by Attorney General Pam Bondi. During her combative appearance before House members on Tuesday, a list of one lawmaker's search history was spotted in Bondi's binder of prepared information. The printout showed which documents Democratic Rep. Pramila Jayapal had pulled up during her visit to see the Justice Department's unredacted files under the title Jayapal Pramila Search History. The revelation sparked furious backlash among Democrats, but even Johnson, who is almost always a fierce defender of the administration, admonished it. I think members should obviously have the right to peruse those at their own speed and with their own discretion. I don't think it's appropriate for anyone to be tracking that, Johnson, 54, said Thursday. He told CNN's Manu Raju that he would echo that to anybody involved with the DOJ. Johnson's rebuke came one day after he declined to comment on the spying allegations, claiming he didn't know anything about it. So this is both a rebuke of Bondi and Trump. I think a little bit more so Bondi, but certainly the administration as a whole. And it kind of has me thinking, is Mike Johnson maybe worried about his members looking at Donald Trump's name and Trump getting mad at him for that? Stay with me here. Are there some Republicans who, of course, are publicly defending the pedo president, publicly doing their pedo protection, who are thinking, how on board with this do I really want to be? And maybe they're looking through these documents. Now, a lot of them said, I haven't had the chance to look. They're not going to. They don't want to know. Much like that, what will soon be, if not already is, infamous photo of Pam Bondi, not even acknowledging the survivors. They don't even want to look at any of this because they know they can't stomach it. But maybe there are a few of them, some wibbly wobblies, who look and go, I don't know if I can do this. Not back Trump, they'll always do that, but back the Epstein cover-up fully. And so maybe Mike Johnson is a little worried about his members getting caught up in something in which Donald Trump is then attacking them. I'm sure there are some Republicans who came to Johnson and said, hey man, if I'm going to go look at those files, no one can know what I'm looking at. Maybe they have their own personal reasons. Maybe it's donors, maybe it's friends, maybe it's media connections. I don't know. But that message was clearly relayed to Johnson because as that article ended, one day it was, haven't seen it, classic Mike. Another day it was, no, this is terrible, a rebuke of Trump, a rebuke of Pam Bondi. So I don't know if that's coming from Trump. It could be. It could also be Mike Johnson just pissed at the administration. And we should be. And Jamie Raskin certainly was. And he continued to go off on Pam Bondi with some updates you're going to want to hear.
I think she was playing to an audience of one. And she was oblivious to or completely indifferent to how the country was experiencing her utterly rude and obnoxious behavior towards Congress and her contemptuous attitude towards the victims, and not just victims of human trafficking who are seated behind her, but also the families of Renee Good, of Alex Preddy, and all the other victims of the federal government violence that have been taking place. I mean, she had not a word of sympathy or interest in any of their cases, and she refused to even defend the fact that, for example, they unleashed an investigation against Renee Good's grieving widow, and she, didn't even bother to defend that. So we're talking about a Department of Justice that is essentially operating like an instrument of revenge for Donald Trump against his enemies, whether it's members of Congress, like a bunch of our colleagues. A grand jury just refused to indict them, but we know that he's gone after James Comey, after Letitia James, after the head of the Federal Reserve Board, after Lisa Cook. And I said yesterday that he orders prosecutions and indictments like pizzas, and Pam Bondi delivers. She just is playing to that audience of one person. She's not interested in listening to the victims of real crimes out in the country. And then what was very galling to people was how she kept trying to take credit for dramatic drops in crime we've seen around the country going back into the Biden administration, and because of state and local governments and law enforcement that she's basically been at war with, as in Minneapolis. But she wanted to take credit for all of the progress the country's been making over the last several years.
Congressman, to follow up on, as you say, the retribution campaign being carried out by this Department of Justice on behest of President Trump, in particular zeroing in on those 6 lawmakers who simply recorded a video urging military members to follow only lawful orders, reminding them that's their duty. As you say, a grand jury declined to indict them. But talk to us about where this could go next. I mean, we had reporting earlier today that they're still looking at other means to perhaps try to charge those 6 members. And what about other members of Congress? You yourself, obviously the president's not a fan of yours. Is this a fear that you have, that you could be next?
So we're talking about the Attorney General of the United States of America participating in a plan to target 6 members of Congress, the Article 1 branch of government, who are military veterans who served our country in uniform as well as in Congress, because they use their First Amendment rights to tell people what the law is, which is that members of the military have not just a right but a duty to disobey a criminal order, an unlawful order. And that's something, by the way, that Pam Bondi herself has stated in the past. Well, we have reached a point of Orwellianism and authoritarianism if people have to be afraid for speaking the truth and exercising their First Amendment rights. And so I think that the country is in uproar about what's taking place. And we saw yesterday how the Department of Justice is not doing anything to defend anybody's rights or liberties, not doing anything to defend the Bill of Rights, but they basically view themselves as a law firm for one guy and to go after his enemies. Now, the amazing thing is how many grand juries across America are vindicating the vision that the framers of the Constitution had.
I think any rational person who heard Pam Bondi or heard Democrats respond to her will be radicalized. With enough of those clips, with enough of this information, we'll see what this administration is doing is disgusting. And that is why we started Shift Media. Because as Megyn R. Kelly is telling people, oh, Jeffrey Epstein, he just likes 16-year-olds, and that's fine, the disgusting freak she is, we need left-wing media, we need progressive media, we need clips of Democrats calling out this administration, flooding the algorithms. Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson, Ben Shapiro, they got billionaire backers who are paying for their clips to be everywhere. We need to combat that. It is why we are building Shift. You can click down below to subscribe. You can click right here, or you can click to watch a clip I know you're going to want to check out. But we can only shift our politics if we also shift our algorithms. That is what we are doing. Subscribe to Shift. Make sure to support. It is an important undertaking. I'm very proud that we are leading up. So go subscribe, go support, keep on fighting. Don't let them silence you. And until next time, I'll see you soon.